Hello everyone, and welcome to a very interesting game from round 6 of the Gashimov Memorial 2018 between Anish, Giri and David Navara. So far we only covered a couple of games, and so far you've seen in my previous videos that the only two players who actually achieved at least one victory were Magnus Carlsen and Veselin Topalov. So here we have a very interesting turn of events. But before we see the actual game, I have a very important announcement I have to share with you. Here, just check this out. It's a letter I received today. It's from YouTube, but you don't have to read it. I did prepare like a digital version of it. So for any of you who are interested in reading what it says, you're very welcome to pause the video and do so. So I will give it a couple of seconds for you to decide. Maybe you want to read it. There you can see it signed by Susan, the CEO of YouTube. So that's the letter, and with the letter I also received something else. So here it is. You can check it out. It even has a mirror there. You can see it here. It's the YouTube silver play button. Here you can see it's very hard to actually get it, but it says presented to agadmator for passing 100,000 subscribers. From YouTube. So very nice. I decided not to do the unboxing video of the button, since every button is the same, only your name is different on it, so it's not like it's going to be a surprise what's inside. But there, just so you know, I did get it. You know, they said it would come in about 6 to 10 weeks, but it actually arrived in 3 days, so that was kind of cool. But now back to the game, and I did prepare some interesting statistics after this game for you. Giri has the white pieces and he opens with e4. Navara plays c6, so we have the Caro-Kann defense. Very interesting, since we covered a lot of Caro-Kann defenses during our series Tal versus Botvinnik. d4, d5, and Giri goes for e5, the advanced variation. Bishop to f5, we have knight to f3, e6, and bishop to e2. c5, kind of losing a tempo, but it's an important move to play. Bishop to e3 and queen to b6, and Giri goes for knight to c3, generously offering the b2 pawn. Now, can the b2 pawn actually be captured? Well, let's grab it and see. If queen captures on b2, of course knight to b5 is what follows. The threat is knight to c7, attacking the king and the rook, so only defense basically is knight to a6. You could also go king d8, but you know, you don't want to move your king unless it's necessary. But then after d captures on c5, bishop captures on c5, you can simply castle. Black's never gonna capture here on e3, he doesn't want to allow this bishop to d6 check, and it would be very hard to play this for black. You have to develop the other knight also on the edge of the board, so not really something you want to do. And if you go knight e7, then you allow knight to d6. This would be very hard to play if bishop captures, pawn captures, and it's questionable if you can even move this knight. If you move the knight, then rook b1 is coming, d7 with check, rook is coming, capturing the b7 pawn with check. Black is falling apart here. So all in all, it's not something you would recommend, capturing the b2 pawn. So knight to c6, knight to a4 now, attacking the queen, queen to a5 check, and now c3. You could also go knight back to c3, but that's not really something you want to do. So instead c3, we have pawn captures on d4, knight captures on d4, and knight captures on d4. Bishop captures on d4 and knight to e7. Castles by Giri, knight to c6, and we have b4 now, attacking the queen. Queen c7 and rook to c1. And here you might think it seems like a very nice idea to grab this bishop. Then the b4 pawn is very weak, and while this might be true, it's really not. Because after knight captures, pawn captures, your queen is now attacked. You have to do something about this. And after you play something like queen to d7, now, okay, you attack the knight on a4, and also the b4 pawn is still attacked. But after knight to c3, you can't capture the b4 pawn, unfortunately. If you capture it, then you get bishop to b5, and you lose the queen and the game. So, after rook to c1, we have bishop to e7, g4 now. The bayonet move. It's not the bayonet variation, but I don't know, in any advanced variation of the Caro-Kann, I like to call the g4 move the bayonets. So bishop to e4, f3, attacking the bishop, bishop moves again, and now f4, preparing f5. So bishop back to e4. We have knight to c5, and now a5. a5, You could also maybe capture the knight, but then bishop captures, and it would be a very annoying bishop. You could never castle. So a5. We have bishop to e3, and now pawn captures on b4. C captures on b4, and bishop, rook to a3. This was a very interesting idea. Rook to a3, as the bishop on e3 is undefended. But it's also a very nice position for you to stop the video and see why rook captures on a2 is not possible. Or maybe it is possible. Feel free to pause the video and check it out. So for those of you who decided to pause the video, congratulations. If you decided that it's not okay to capture the rook, if you capture the rook, then the simple knight captures on e4 wins the game, because after d captures you get b5, and the knight is pinned. There's a rook on c1, you lose the piece. No point in continuing this game. So after the c captures on b4, Navara tried rook to a3, going for the bishop on e3. Bishop to f2 was played, and now bishop captures on c5. Bishop captures on c5, and this is now an excellent position for Giri. This bishop is slicing all the way here, not allowing Navara's king to castle, and b5 would be a terrible threat. This would attack the knight and also open up the attack from this bishop to the rook on a3. So you do have to play something here. And it's not all that easy to decide what. Here, Navara did capture the pawn on a2, and he did allow this b5 move. But b5 is not such a big idea now, because well, there's no rook on a3 that's under attack. And here you have to play knight to a5. But even after knight to a5, bishop to d6 is coming. And then after queen moves, this comes with check. It's very hard to decide what to do. You can bring bishop back to c5, which would kind of be an offer for a repetition of moves, which could result in a draw, since, this is Giri playing. He might even go for this after, a repetition like this. But after this b5 move, bishop to c2 was played. And this is a move that basically characterizes this game. Bishop to c2, and what do you play now? The knight on c6 is still under attack. And what's the idea? Why did Navara play bishop to c2? One possible idea is that he saw rook captures, and then he saw that the queen cannot capture the rook. Because if queen captures, then comes the knight to d4. And now your bishop on e2 is attacked, the queen is attacking the bishop on c5, the bishop cannot capture the knight on d4 because the queen would be hanging on c2, and you have to play a move here. Sorry about that. If you play queen c3 or queen c1, then bishop captures on e2, checks the king, and wins the queen, as the knight is covering both of those squares. So it's very hard to find a move. After something like queen to a4, you do lose the bishop here, and after king g2, queen captures on c5. So you'd be up a piece for a moment, but after queen checks, king moves, and queen captures on h8, it's white who's up the exchange, but after something like queen c2, it would end in a draw. You have to go away with the king, and then queen c3 check, king goes back, and then it will be a repetition of moves. If you try something like this, then queen e4 will even be winning for black. But it's very hard to say how much of this did Navara see or analyze, because after this bishop to c2 move, the problem is after rook captures, Giri doesn't have to immediately capture the rook. He can simply play b6, and then it's game over immediately. Because now if the queen moves, we get the exact same position we had before. So for example, queen c8, now queen captures on c2, and now knight to d4 is no longer possible. If knight to d4 now, which was the idea before, now there is no longer pawn on b5. Queen a4 check, and black is just losing. You have to go back, and then bishop b5, simply pinning it. Giri would be up a piece in a completely winning position. But this is why I called the video a lazy variation. After this bishop to c2 move, Giri didn't maybe he was too lazy to calculate all of this, but it doesn't really matter, because he saw that the immediate b6 is just as winning. Because now if you play something like queen to c8, we get the exact same variation we had. Rook captures, and then knight to d4 is useless. But it might be a slightly lesser move in terms of maybe the strength of moves, but it doesn't matter. For it's sufficient. It's a very nice human move, a very nice lazy human move, because now he did allow bishop captures queen on d1. Here we have pawn captures queen on c7, and of course now Giri saw that black doesn't have time to stop pawn to c8 queen and capturing of the bishop at the same time, so he would definitely win a piece at the end of this variation. So Giri decided this was okay. He played this b6 move with this idea, and we have king to d7 by Navara. Bishop captures on d1, so Giri is now up a piece. We have king captures on c7 and bishop to d6 check. King to d7 and now rook to b1. And it was in this position after rook to b1 that David Navara resigned the game. Why did he resign? Well, he's down a piece and he really doesn't have any counterplay. He does have two pawns for the piece, but you can't really defend this. The b7 pawn is under attack. You have to do something. If you play knight here, then you get rook to b4, and there's really nothing black can do. Bishop to a4 is coming with check, and after black plays any move, for example f6, now comes bishop to a4 check, and you have to give up the rook. If you try and run away, then you're getting checkmated. Rook c1 check, knight blocks, captures, 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 king moves, checks, king d7, and rook to c7. This will be checkmate. Or black will run into some severe material loss. So yeah, after this rook to b1, David Navara resigned the game, and a first victory for Anish Giri in the Gashimov Memorial 2018. And I did say I prepared some nice statistics for you, so here is their overall lifetime record. So far, Anish Giri beat David Navara 3-0 with 6 draws. So they played 9 games so far. Giri won 3, 6 of them were drawn. So a very nice result by Giri, and you know, might be one of the reasons why Navara played the bishop c2 move. He just got too nervous playing against Giri, as he never even drew. He never won a game against him. So yeah, that's one of the things, and another thing is here are the standings after round 6 of the Gashimov Memorial. Still in first place, Veselin Topalov with 4 out of 6, only player with 2 wins so far in the tournament. Magnus Carlsen and Anish Giri both with 3.5 points, both of them with 1 win, and then all of the other players who so far have not yet achieved a single win. Rauf Mamedov, Sergei Karyakin, Ding Liren, Timur Rajabov, Radoslav Wojtaszek, Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, and David Navara now in last place after losing this game against Giri. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Mate Šimonić for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, hopefully with another interesting video. Thank you all.